of casual discussions with the boys.
Oh, I'm so proud of you guys. Oh, you can't hear me, huh? Wow. Oh, Johnny, oh. Okay. What?
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Casual Discussions with the Boys. We finally enter phase 4. Very exciting. We will do the shows eventually, considering doing those. But in the meantime, we're going to start off with the first movie in phase 4, and that is Black Widow. An interesting start to phase 4, to say the least. Just because the movie is set, I guess, before even before Infinity War. So it's interesting that they went that route in regards to the positioning of this movie. But I guess we'll go into our deeper thoughts and review of the movie as we go through our usual segments. First segment, phase 1, actually, which is a mix of Out of the Cave and If This Movie Be Worthy. All right. I think I'll start. And Out of the Cave, usually our Out of the Cave experience is out of the movies. So it's interesting that we got this one. It's the first Marvel movie we got, first phase 4 one we got, but first one we got that we could only watch on Disney Plus at home on a streaming service. And I got to say, it definitely wasn't the same without the boys. It was a bit of a bummer in that sense. But at the same time, it was nice to be able to just, chuck on a movie at home and experience that kind of thing. And I enjoyed Black Widow. First time watching it, I thought it maybe didn't do as much for her character as Scarlett Johansson thought it would have, but I think I still found that I appreciated her character in certain senses from this film. I'm trying not to let the whole, controversy behind the claims in regards to her suing Disney and all that affect my thoughts on this movie. I'm trying to just review it as a movie in its own right. And yeah, I think from first viewing, I enjoyed it. I will hammer it in the I'm always angry parts in certain aspects. But for now, I think I'll just say I enjoyed certain aspects like the family dynamic. It wasn't even a family. It was a fake family. But I liked them playing on that and how awkward everyone is, because Natasha's always been an awkward character in regards to interactions with Avengers. She was only ever cool when she was like, being sneaky or espionage or whatnot. She was always hiding behind some kind of fake facade. sneaky between the cheeky. The other thing I like, the action was good. I really enjoy hand-to-hand combat. It was probably nothing has topped Winter Soldier yet in that regard, and I actually think her fight with Hawkeye in the first Avengers movie was probably one of the best fights still. And the only other thing I want to comment on is, I guess, in regards to the Red Room stuff. That was an interesting story to dive deep into. I like that. I got kind of Jason Bourne vibes. Probably not to that level of depth, but it was pretty good. I will say. So yeah, that was cool to see. All right, I'll hand it over to Chance, phase 1.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks. First of all, I will say if this podcast doesn't make enough money, I will be suing Disney, just for my my rights and my profit income, and I won't be able to work with them ever again. But I will make enough money off the streaming service to never have to work again, supposedly. Shout out to Scarlett Johansson. Shout out to ScarJo. Yeah, cool. Out of the Cave experience. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I actually was really excited to watch this movie. Now I know that it was pushed back a lot. We do know that. But I was very excited to watch it because obviously it was the first movie that we'd seen. And I say movie we'd seen from Marvel since Far From Home, right? That's the last movie that we got from Marvel. So look, did it feel? And I guess the comparison I have to ask myself is, did it feel different to watching WandaVision? Watching like in my home, did it feel different? Because we did watch it in our home. We couldn't go to the movies, all that sort of stuff. I will say it did feel different. That there were elements of it where you could tell the budget was a little bit higher than some of those shows. The stuff they were able to do with the set pieces, the characters they were able to use, all that stuff was a bit above the budget that they had. Now this was before we got the Loki finale, I think, or the Loki finale come before this. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was before.
The Loki finale was before this.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, the Loki finale was great. We're not going to talk about that right now. But I went into this movie pretty excited. I will say I enjoyed it. Like, as watching a Marvel movie at home, I do think I would have loved it way more at the movies. But I did find myself enjoying it quite a little bit. I had some massive problems with it, which we'll get to overall. I definitely do not think this movie falls nowhere near the bottom of the pack of the Marvel movies to me. It's very much a mid-level, mid-tier Marvel movie, kind of pushing up into that upper echelon of what could be. And I think there's some problems with it, which we'll get to. But some of the good things for me that I loved, like you said, Zeta, the action in it I found was really good, especially that first scene when we first get Taskmaster and getting to see him do what he or she can do in that suit. I thought was a really, really good scene because I think that's something that people were really excited about. I'm not a huge comic reader. I don't know Taskmaster all that well, but I know that people were really excited for Taskmaster. And so to see that action, now, do we get it through the whole movie? Definitely not. We'll get to that. But in that scene, I think we got a really good action sequence. And I think the fight between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh when they first get to the Budapest safe house, I thought was a really good fight scene. I think you said at the start too, Zeta, some of the stuff I love was the family through lines. I love the opening scene. The opening scene for me was one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a Marvel movie, which is a big thing to say. But that scene when they're in Ohio and then seeing the family dynamic and then kind of seeing that fall apart before our very eyes, right as we land the plane and Dreykov kind of just takes over. That was a really impactful family moment, which I thought was really, really good. The actual through lines that impacted Infinity War for me, I think that there's a negative, which I'll get to, which is an interesting timing to make this movie. And the question I'll ask to you guys later maybe is if this movie had come out in the order that it would have come out in the original timeline. So if we got Civil War, then we got this movie, then we got an Infinity War, would you have felt the impact in Infinity War on Scarlett Johansson, on Black Widow, a lot more than what you did when you watched Infinity War? I think you probably would.
I don't know.
Depends, I guess.
Yeah, just quickly, because I was a bit underwhelmed with, I think it was Homecoming and Black Panther before those. Thor Ragnarok did great. But like with those movies at the time, I wasn't too for them because Infinity War was coming and I knew that. So the fact that I knew Infinity War was there did play on it. So I feel like this movie probably would have gone lower. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, look, it's an interesting thought process. And I'll say, if you haven't yet, since you've watched Black Widow again, for you guys, go back and watch, because I did this when I finished it. I went back and watched Infinity War. Because obviously we get the moments of like where she gives her the vest that she's wearing in Infinity War, that amazing moment where her sister gives her the vest.
The payoff.
The payoff for that is really, really good. Obviously, we get this concept of like what she gave up in Endgame to actually, give herself over, to sacrifice herself, means so much more now knowing what she gained in this movie, which I thought was a really interesting point to kind of tie into that. And then obviously from a character point of view, just some highlights for me was Florence Pugh, I think was incredible. I think it probably almost was a bit of a detriment to the movie, and we'll get to that because she was almost too incredible for this movie. And then I also like Drake. I actually love Dreykov as a villain. I think Taskmaster took away from Dreykov. That's my opinion. But I think the concept of Dreykov as a villain, what he's able to do in the Red Room, the control that he was able to have, this kind of like assassin women's that he has all around the world, it kind of reminded me of some sort of stuff that X-Men have tried to do, but it was a cool concept around having all these women out there in the world being assassins. So that was a lot for me, but they were the things that I like. So yeah.
Nice. All right. I can see David just rearing to get his thoughts out on this movie.
Go, Fitzy, go.
He's let's hear it.
Well, like, just a quick note, you guys made a point about, how Infinity War could affect your viewing, but you can broaden that. Like, I watched Dolly Do Right yesterday, and that's affected my view of what heroes are. So anything can affect your opinion of a movie in hindsight. So
Thank you so much for bringing Brendan Fraser back into our Casual Discussions podcast.
Shout out Brendan Fraser. We love you.
I want Dudley Do-Right in the next Avengers. Anyway, yeah, look, obviously Black Widow is... The opinions on it are interesting in the sense of, like, super pumped to see the movie last year, was so keen for it. Obviously, a global pandemic happened. Oh, you know, the constant waiting. Is it coming out? Is it not? Then we finally get to see it. And it worked for me. Honestly, like when I first watched it, and we'll find out at the end of this podcast whether I am actually going to give it this, but I said it was, 9 out of 10. I really loved it. And I think the reason why I enjoyed it so much is that is like, I enjoy comics. I enjoy the, outlandish, the cosmic, the, any type of genre they go into. But my favorite is that spy espionage. It's why Winter Soldier is so high on my list. And I enjoyed that it went into the espionage side of things. At the same time, it really dealt with some very strong themes, and like trauma. Trauma is a big part of this film, and how, the concept of support from a family, whether biological or adoptive. And it just, and what it does well is it makes all these characters real and human. Like each one, like even with characters like Red Guardian, like, yeah, he's a joke, but there are so many points in the movie they show that this is an actual guy. He's not just the joke of the movie. He's not the Drax of the movie. This guy is, got a sadness to him. He's got, a tragedy to him. And look, a lot of people point out Dreykov and they say, oh, he's another suit villain that just, just a stereotypical suit villain. I'm like Caleb. I enjoy the suit villains. I think that they should be appreciated a lot more. And I even feel he has a depth to him as well. And we'll go into it later, but the whole idea of someone that's so insecure, his whole life needs to be based on controlling people. And it's just interesting how they deal with that. So, yeah, we'll go into more, but overall, every time I've watched the movie, I've enjoyed it, and I haven't had many qualms with it. So, yeah.
I might as well ask the question. Does knowing, I mean, you've given your thoughts already, but does knowing that, like, the whole case, the claim, the sue behind it, has that affected your viewing of the movie at all, or your rating of it, or even just Disney in general?
I think if I'd heard it before I watched it the first time, it may have. I don't like to say that because I don't like to think that it would. But if I had heard it before I watched it, it's so hard in the social media world that we all live in, that when we read something, so for instance, like if we're really excited about a movie, so let's talk about Shang-Chi, right? We're really excited about Shang-Chi, and then we read a review because it popped up on our Facebook by, IGN, that it's 5 out of 10 or something. We can't help but go into a watching experience with that in the back of our mind. We can probably push it away, but we still take that into it because it's like, someone told us, someone sent us a thing that said it was really crap or whatever. So I think if I'd heard this before, I would have gone into it kind of having that perception of Scarlett Johansson being like, oh, all you care about is, because the way that they worded it and all the things was, it made her come out across as really bad, saying that she was selfish and wanted more money and blah, blah, blah. Whereas, I mean, look, Disney probably has just as much problems in the sense of maybe they were trying to screw her over. I don't really know. I don't know the full detail, but it definitely doesn't. I think I can go back and watch it now, and it doesn't really affect the way that I view it now because I've already watched it and enjoyed it. But I think if I'd read it beforehand, it probably, it might have.
Yeah, right.
Do you think it's really a question of separating art from life, which has been a hard thing to determine over the last couple of years, of how much do we just approach something as this is a film, this is the characters, and kind of putting aside what's happening in the real world? Like, are we allowed to do that? I don't know. That's the question, I guess.
Yeah, it's actually been a constant question throughout all our, well, not all of them, but a lot of our discussions in these movies.
Well, to give an example, right? Like, I love the Suicide Squad, and one of my favorite characters in it was Rick Flag. And like, we won't know yet, but not long after, the actor of Rick Flag was accused of something, and it's been denied, and we'll see where it goes. But I want to be able to divorce that from the movie. I don't want that to affect my opinion of the character in the movie. But it's hard when you read that. It's like, so it's like, how do you approach it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me as well. I just want to be able to enjoy a movie for what it is, but at the same time, I also want to be able to critique a movie for what it is and not let outside issues
I think you
affect
can,
it, you know.
yeah, compartmentalize. Unless, like, to me, unless on the set of the movie, hundreds of people died, and then
Yeah.
and then like you're in the scenes of the movie. It's like, oh, I know in that scene all these people died. Like in real life, that's different. But I feel like if something's happening outside of the movie, I guess you will be able to, even maybe over time, be able to compartmentalize that and be like, that's that. This is this. I don't know. I guess the only thing it affects for me is the fact that I think I've had this attitude that Marvel's been a family, that they've all, been this big, support to each other, and they all looked out for each other, and they come to work and they're super happy, they're loving it. And then for Scarlett Johansson to, like, now she's leaving the MCU, to be like, all right, I'm going to voice all the things that have gone wrong, and I'm going to get my share of the money. And it just makes you feel like, well, maybe you guys aren't all on the same page as I thought you were.
Yeah. I really wanted to make a Vin Diesel joke, but I think that joke is tired at this point. So
it's never tired.
Never.
Tired.
We will always reference Fast and Furious in this podcast.
I'm just gonna leave it there anyway.
Do you think that just a quick question? Do you think that Hawkeye is the John Cena to Scarlett Johansson's Vin Diesel?
I think he's the peacemaker to
okay, right.
Scarlett's Rick Flag.
Well, I'll quickly make a point before we move on. Even Hawkeye, like a year ago, we thought Jeremy Renner was cancelled, and now we're looking forward to the next Hawkeye movie, and I don't want to say forgotten about it, but like that's kind of been compartmentalized. So I don't know that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I guess with this one, it's a bit different because it's affecting straight up releases of movies, which is a bit of another factor.
I guess the questions I have around it is I just don't understand. You imagine Scarlett Johansson has a decent relationship with Kevin Feige, right? Like, as in you would think that would be the case. I don't know whether that's true or not. She's been around for quite a while. Kevin Feige now works for Disney, et cetera, et cetera. You just think that surely there could have been conversations that were had where that was actual, like a civil conversation.
Yeah.
Where
Civil War.
And then look, Civil War, and that's what it would turn into. But then look, and then even if they did turn ugly, where press got a hold of it and released that she'd had those conversations, that may be something that people try to cancel her for, but then she'd be able to come back from that if she wanted to. If they wanted to do another project with her down the track, she could come back from that, right? It's almost like she's gone. And it's almost like, to me, when I look at it, and I'm not trying to go Disney over here is the best and Scarlett here, she shot herself in the foot. Like, Disney own everything, and they're going to keep owning everything. And I just don't know whether it was worth it. It's worth it to have the conversation. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve to get the money that she deserves, but I don't know that it was worth it to do it in the public manner that it happened. Like, because from a normal person like us, all that we get is one day we're watching Black Widow and we're like, oh, that was fun, really, really good. Wow, how much money did it make on Disney Plus? I was more impressed for Disney Plus on that. Like, the world's changing, all this sort of stuff. And then the next thing we hear is like, oh, okay, she's suing them because she's had enough and she wants money. And now I know that's manipulated to make us think that. I do think Disney are a bit stupid for releasing publicly how much money it made on Disney Plus because they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But they obviously wanted to do that so that it proved to the viewers, hey, this is working. We can keep releasing stuff on here and it's going to work. That's why they wanted to do that. So,
but
anyway.
I guess it's the same thing with the actor of Shang-Chi is, like, I'm so excited for Shang-Chi, and I think it's good to have discussion about Asian representation. But, a couple of months ago, he came out and said, oh, I think it's wrong that Asians are stereotyped to Kung Fu movies. And he's literally doing a Marvel Kung Fu movie that's coming out. And then recently with the whole thing about, oh, yeah, Shang-Chi is going to be an experiment to see, how it's going to go in theaters. That's my understanding of it. And then he came out and was like, my people have been trying to rise up. And I'm like, I don't think that's where Disney was trying to go with it. But that's it. It's just this constant, like, you're bringing me down as an actor. You're bringing down the representation I'm trying to bring. And it's like, it's good to have discussion about, but this movie's coming out and the way you're talking about it, it's you're bringing politics into a Marvel movie in a platform that instead of promoting, I don't know. It's hard to find that line. Like,
again, it's just affecting the viewing of the movie. I mean, it does cause conversation, and then it does make people. It gives it publicity in a sense. Like, I find it's like a fight. The fighters talk, say things about each other to promote the fight. But I'm not saying he's doing that to obviously promote the movie. Like again, the movements are good. It's just sometimes they just get a bit too much where, like you said, the politics get involved, and then it's hard to enjoy the movie for what it is.
Well, maybe it's better to approach it rather than reactive. Like, again, discussing certain platforms and talk about it in a way. I don't know. I think there are a way on both ends we can sort out these things better.
Have any of you watched the TV show that he's in, Kim's Convenience, on Netflix?
I have. I finished it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Awesome show. They're really good. Anyway, yeah.
One more thing. I think in Scarlett Johansson's case, like, I think with anyone, to take it to court is so much more of it's so much more difficult, like, and so much more expensive. So to have gone that far, I think I agree with what Caleb said. There could have been conversations done to avoid taking it to a full-on court case, which just complicates things even more. I think. I don't know if she was triggered by something, or she does want more in some senses, or if Disney's dodgy. Who knows? But like, yeah, I'm sure it could have been handled in a way that didn't draw this much media attention to just end up affecting just everything. But anyways, on that note, we move on to the next segment, which is I'm Always Angry.
I'm always angry.
Which works well from where we came off.
Exactly. Caleb, you want to start this one?
Yeah, I will. Look, there was definitely things in this movie that made me angry. To be honest, I think I'll kick it off first by saying the amount of trailers we got for this movie made me angry because there's a certain point where my biggest dream, and I always say this with a movie, and it's why Spider-Man Far From Home, would love this. I'm sorry, not Far From Home, No Way Home. I would love if they just never released a trailer and we all went into it blind. That would be the best thing ever for me, right? I've always wanted that to happen. So because of that dream, and I know why they did it, because they were like, it's getting extended and extended and extended, and they felt like they had to keep releasing trailers to like get people excited. We ended up getting like 4 or 5 trailers for this movie. Like, it was a lot of trailers. Like,
the whole movie.
Basically the whole movie, except for Taskmaster taking her thing off. So that was a negative. I just think it got me to a point where I was like, I've seen so much of what this movie is kind of about that I'm like, and because it was so long, and I get why it was so long being released, I read a lot of Reddit stuff. So there were so many different fake scripts out there that was like, by the time I watched it, this is my own fault. I didn't know the final outcome of the movie, but I kind of pieced certain things together that impacted my viewing experience. That's just COVID's fault. So if I'm always angry, I'm angry at COVID, I guess. I said before that Florence Pugh as Yelena was one of the best parts of the movie. The reason it's a negative for me is I think I know why Marvel did it, because they're thinking about the future, and they're trying to think about the fact that Scarlett Johansson's probably not going to be around forever, and they want to push forward Florence Pugh, who's like this up-and-coming actor who's like everybody loves, is incredible, has great talent. I walked away from this, and me and Layla both said the same thing. My wife, we were both like, that's Yelena's movie. That's not Black Widow's movie. That's Yelena's movie. Like, it felt like Yelena's movie to me, right? It felt like an origin story of Yelena, which I'm like, I'm all for that. I'm 100% on board with that. But that's a negative to me because people have waited so long for Scarlett Johansson and Natasha to have her own movie. And I felt like it wasn't really her movie. It was like, I walked away going, Yelena was by far the best character in that movie, and it wasn't even a contest. So to me, that's a negative. The final act of the movie, I just don't think landed. And I think this is a problem that Marvel have been criticized of across the board. I don't think the final act of the movie landed where it needed to. That
is because the ship crashed. Is that what you mean? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, if they landed it properly, then it would have been better. But because it fell out of the sky,
it just didn't land.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
No, look, I think from the moment they got to the Red Room, it went downhill a little bit for me from there, right? And it seemed like such a rushed finish to get all that done, where we ended Taskmaster's story, Dreykov was finished, they connected back as a family, and then she gets on the ship to go back to Infinity War. That happened to me so quickly that I didn't really feel like we got enough of it. And look, I don't know how you fix that, because the first half of the movie, or first 2/3 of the movie, which was so family-based, I did love. And maybe we don't get that amount of time with the family unless we get the quick finish. So you got to kind of give or take. I'll let you guys maybe talk more about Taskmaster if you want to. I didn't love Taskmaster in this movie. Again, It's not because she's a female. I think that they could have worked perfectly with any person. I think for us as a group of guys, we were really excited to watch Taskmaster to see, is it going to be somebody from the Marvel Universe that we've seen before? Because they were very clear, like they were in Winter Soldier in the lead up with not taking the mask off in the trailers. So what it meant to me was there's going to be a twist, which there kind of was. But I thought the twist was going to be a lot bigger than what it was. Do you know what I mean? I thought maybe, it was going to be her mother or going to be like all this sort of stuff, which I'm not saying any of those are better than this option, but I'm just saying I feel like it was a letdown because the moment that the mask got taken off, my perception of it, because it was Dreykov's daughter, went from being Taskmaster's up here to Taskmaster's way down here. Like it just didn't really correlate. And the last one was obviously I actually like Rick Mason as a character in this movie. Her kind of ex-Shield friend. I don't think he got used enough. I would have liked to see Rick Mason be used a little bit more, but that's just my personal opinion. So that's my negatives.
He was so out of place in that movie.
I thought he was Taskmaster because I thought there's no reason for him to be in this movie other than to be Taskmaster. And then
yeah, it's just like, anyways. All right, I'm not gonna talk about too much because Chan's touched on like very good points there, and I agree with most of them. I just want to focus on Taskmaster. What a train wreck of a character!
Can I chime in? Can I chime in a few times?
yeah, you can, yeah. Because I know you feel this movie.
Yeah.
I have seen many iterations of Taskmaster. I enjoyed him in cartoons. I enjoy him in the comics. I think he's an awesome character. He is an awesome character. As Chan has said, mistakenly, it's a he. But that doesn't really bother me as much. I actually didn't mind that they put a twist on it as Dreykov's daughter. But there was no depth to this character.
Wrong.
To the portrayal.
Sorry, keep talking.
Wrong. How am I wrong? She had like 1.5 lines.
Those lines are very deep, man.
You're joking me. You are actually joking. Chen said before, like, he thought Taskmaster took a bit away from Dreykov. I think it's the other way around. And Chen said it again later. Dreykov went up later in this movie. Taskmaster went down. Taskmaster was way down, so he went even further down in the attention span of me. I liked that they put twist on the character, like in regards to how she studied like different fights between the Avengers, and then she has all these technological like enhancements to like, I guess, copy different fighting styles. But even so, they were very subtle in this movie. Like, they didn't make those things as obvious as I feel like they could have, in a sense. Those fight scenes were just downplayed a bit too much, in my opinion. And I think the main thing for me is because I've seen Taskmaster in such different lights where he could be used in such good ways, or utilized in such like better ways, then that's affected my viewing of this movie, because it was just trash. It was just trash master, if you ask me. So that's all I'm going to say about it. David, you can chime in and say your praises about the piece of crap.
I'll get to that in the next part. I'm going to build the suspense.
I think, I agree with Chan's on other negatives. Just Black Widow, it didn't get. I was very underwhelmed with like what I thought they were going to do for Natasha's character. Maybe other characters shown more because of that, but I don't know. It wasn't. I don't know. It didn't put her. It wasn't a Captain America Winter Soldier, where like this is Cap, right? It was just a Black Widow, like little story. But yeah,
I've never really noticed up until this movie how much Natasha, let's say Scarlett Johansson, in the other movies, she's never really given, except for Endgame. She pulls it off in Endgame, but except for Endgame, she's never really given to me that really emotional sequence where you're the one connecting with her. She's always alongside other people that are kind of giving, like, the emotional story is not really driven. She's very serious all the time, right? So in this movie, if you wanted to pile drive the fact that it was like family, this is family, blah, 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 you would let her have those emotional moments, but they're all given to Florence Pugh. She gets all the dinner table emotional scenes. She gets all the bye-bye Miss American Pie moments with the dad. She, like, all that's given to her. So when I walk away from this, I'm like, oh, wow, she must really care about her family, Natasha. I'm like, dude, Florence Pugh would kill for her family.
You were my real
Yelena
mother.
would kill for them. And I know that we
Closest
get that
thing
bit
I
at the
ever
end
had
when
to
her
her.
and Yelena are like hugging and stuff, but I think to me there just wasn't enough emotional like narrative being driven with Natasha. It was all kind of moved over to Yelena because it made more sense the way they directed it for the little sister to be the one that was like way more emotional.
Yeah.
Which I mean works for Disney and Marvel because now they're going to make, you know, potentially a Thunderbolt show. She's going to be in it. She's going to be in a Hawkeye show. Like all that makes sense. But if you were a diehard Natasha fan, which I'm not, so I don't really care, then you would be like, she got screwed over, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. But like you said, it does make sense for Natasha's character, who's always been a distant person. So for the narrative, for the most part, it does make sense why that's the approach they went.
They're also, I think, trying to establish the fact that I think what they're trying to do is, and that's why it kind of works towards your point of this being set as a Phase 3 film.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Which is that they're trying to set it up for her to go back to her actual family, which is the Avengers. Which, again, I know they established, but it's like, yes, it's her family, but Yelena needs his family more than Natasha does. This is more like her building trust again, feeling like she can be with people again. And so that's where I think why they don't give it to her, because otherwise she would have stayed with them. She'd be like, oh, yeah, you're my family. But I think it was more like, you're an aspect of my past that still means something to me, but I need to go to be with my family, which is Steve Rogers with a beard and long hair. So,
yeah, I'd say overall it adds to the MCU value. But as to our attention on Black Widow, it didn't do as much for her as she, like, I guess we would have liked, or fans of Black Widow would have liked.
I reckon there's a deleted scene where she goes to see Steve Rogers and she's like, I really miss Red Guardian right now. And he's like, well, how about I grow a beard and just try and make myself look a bit more like him that way and put on a Russian accent.
And then she went blonde and then they sang American Pie together.
I really want to see that deleted scene.
I would love to see the deleted scene of Steve Rogers playing with the Red Guardian action figure and just pulling the...
Oh, that'd be so good.
That would be the best.
All right, David, your angry bits.
I don't have that many. But the one I will point out is, look, I like Ross as a character. But I feel like they haven't really utilized him entirely. Like he's always just the angry guy that just is trying to like go after everyone, which I feel like they should give him more depth. And even in this, what I don't understand is why is he... So he's old in Civil War, he's old in Infinity War, he's old in Endgame, but they de-aged him. So it's like, what happened? Was it like he had a later life crisis between those movies? Like, I got to make myself look younger. Like, I just don't understand. It's like you didn't need to de-age him. He's looks the same as he looks in those other movies. So, and I guess I don't know. Like,
I'm with the fan theory on that he's experimenting on himself for Red Hulk stuff.
I thought he's just getting plastic surgery. And then when instead of getting dusted, all the plastic surgery just came off him. When
he used plastic surgery to avoid Thanos.
He had a plan. It's like, oh no!
It's like because we did a Batman and Robin podcast a little while ago, and when he wears rubber lips to avoid getting poisoned, that's what Ross did.
He knew.
Again, it's like, Batman and Robin paved the way. So
but it's even like, again, this movie helps reinforces that Ross should not have been at that funeral in Endgame. Like he just caused so much trouble for everyone. Like, you know, if he was there, you might as well have had like Red Skull rock up at that funeral because. But that's my only nitpick. I was really looking forward to. There were rumors that they were going to get unused footage from Civil War, where Tony's talking to Black Widow, where that scene was like they're coming for you and all that, and put that at the beginning of the film. I would have liked that because like I don't see it as Tony coming back. I don't see it Robert Downey Jr. coming back. It's more just being like, we're just expanding on that scene, and it's just a bit of a side note. I would have liked it if I didn't want flashbacks. I'll go into that later. I didn't want a prequel type situation, but I would have liked it if Hawkeye rocked up at some point. Like it would have made a lot more sense to Hawkeye to have been with. He was in. No, that's not right because he was in house arrest or something at that point. But I don't know.
like in
just,
this movie, like alongside
like-
them.
well, instead of like Rick Mason rocking up, I don't know. But then, I don't know.
That would
Well,
have
it's
been
a bit,
cool. Yeah.
but then
agree.
I don't know. It's hard with the timeline because it's like I think at that point Hawkeye's in prison and
yeah.
Steve's just about to go and But then
Break
I don't
him out,
know.
yeah.
Like they could have had that scene when Steve's in there, and then
Well, I mean, Natasha herself was in hiding, so he could have pulled it off.
Yeah, but I mean, like maybe like you have that scene in Civil War where Steve Rogers rocks up to the door and smiles. Maybe like you could have done that scene, but then it's Black Widow rocking up to Hawkeye's cell, and I don't know. It just like I get again. It's like looking at the movie as Rick Mason, thinking he's going to be Taskmaster. It's like this makes sense, but because he's not Taskmaster, it's like, well, I don't see your point in this movie. So it would have just been better if they focused more on the Hawkeye Black Widow dynamic in a way that would have worked in the cinematic universe, I guess.
It makes me wonder if maybe in the original scripts and the original, because I know they did a couple of reshoots for this. I know they they couldn't reshoot everything, but in the original writing, I wonder if Rick Mason was Taskmaster. Like in the original, because I'm like, you're right, Dave. It doesn't really make sense for him to be there. So if they already had filmed those earlier scenes with him where he was there, maybe the intention was that he was going to be, and then later they changed it to make it be Dracov's daughter because they thought it made more sense for the narrative. I guess I will say on Taskmaster before we move on, and look, if you get to MVP or Assassins, David, and Taskmaster comes up, I'm quitting this podcast just so we know. I'm sure it's coming. I will say I was listening to a different podcast and they were saying, hey, the Taskmaster, because it was so suit orientated, it would be interesting that actually can be passed on to someone else to use down the track in the MCU, which, look, I'm not actually against. I would be interested to see that happen in a different format. I think they've tainted the view of Taskmaster. So I guess what I'm saying is they have to make it really good. I'd have to watch it and be like, wow, this is awesome. I'm not going to go into the project being like, wow, this is really exciting. They have Taskmaster, because they've ruined that now. But for me, if it was really good and they used it again, I would be 100% on board with that. So, yeah.
I just think they needed to do more with both Taskmaster, Dracov's daughter. They could have done something more.
Also, quickly go back to Rick Mason. You notice in the film he's always complaining. He's like, oh, I have to do this for you. I have to do that for you. What are you?
You know what you
live in a van in the middle of nowhere. What?
It wasn't even his van.
I thought you were supposed to be the best.
It's just he's got plenty of time. Like if I wasn't doing anything, I wouldn't be like, oh, I keep doing these things for you. You don't look like you're doing anything else.
Yeah.
He must have had strong sexual tension for Natasha, and she wasn't reciprocating it. So I think that's where his frustration was coming from. He's like, dude, I'm getting you planes. Like I don't understand why can't we sleep together? Like I don't get it.
It's a really big plane. One thing I will say about Taskmaster is, and this is the only qualm I have with it, is look, they've done a great job now. Say like Baron Zemo. We're actually going to make him like the comic book Baron Zemo. We're actually going to make him feel important like in the comics. So it seemed like they were moving more away from just getting really major characters and just giving them a one movie with not much development. Taskmaster is kind of going back to that, which is like, yeah, it's just a one-off. You don't need to worry about, which in the comics, he's a big deal. So that's the only negative I'll have for that.
Moving on then to MVP. We'll start off with Mr. Left Field. David, who's your MVP?
It's definitely Taskmaster. No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. I would not do that. My MVP, it's got to be Yelena. I know there's probably others, but the reason why, look, I really like Florence Pugh. I've pretty much enjoyed every movie I've seen her in. She's just like really to me, she's one of the best actresses around, and she's going to do a lot of great things. As well as that, I like it because this could have gone so wrong. Like the idea of the whole sister thing, they could have really made it seem corny and tacky, like the squabbling sisters, and like, it's like this, in the CW where people hate each other for no reason. I thought they were going to, but they did a great job with it. That even when she makes comments like, you're such a mum and all that, it works. It all works. And even like when she makes fun of Black Widow, when it's like, oh, you do that thing with the stance and all that. Like, that could have not worked. That could have been terrible, but I laughed with you because it was just so natural. She was just so natural in everything she did.
It's a fighting pose. You're a total pose.
Like, again, and this is not so much a point to her, but it still sort of works around it. The whole American Pie thing, that again could have gone wrong because how many times has Disney used the song? And even when I first heard it, I was like, oh, please tell me Disney's not going to get a main song and try and make a point of it. But they did it so great and they made it so perfect. I was singing that song for ages afterwards. So, yeah. So, yeah. Points out to Yelena. So I don't know how I feel about the whole thing about her going after Hawkeye. I don't know how that fully makes sense, but other than that, it was great. So yeah.
I agree. I actually too. I think, yeah, a lot of things were just she was just a natural way. Like, I guess that's credit to her acting. But again, I was on board with a lot of her humor for this. I guess her jabs at Nat were really good, and it played well into that sister vibe. She's not my MVP. That's why I'm touching on her right now. Making points about her right now. Sorry, apologies. But I think the one bit that I was like a bit, this is going a bit far, was when they talked about the uterus stuff and all that. I was just like, okay, they're really leaning into this joke a bit much.
Right in there.
So I think they had. I think they had to reference that because again, they brought up in Age of Ultron. I don't know, and it wasn't really handled well in Age of Ultron. So I don't know. I think they just had to find a way to reference it.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Chance, who's your MVP, bro?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to stick in line with David here and say Yelena. There's no surprise there. I've kind of sang her praises this whole podcast. I thought she was incredible. Like dead set. I know that everyone really liked her in this movie, but I thought she was a standout. Like to me now, David's kind of like, okay, how does that work with Hawkeye, etc. Which I agree, it's a bit confusing, but to me, if you put Florence Pugh into a Marvel project, it's moving up top of my list for how excited I am for it. Like I just thought she was that good in this movie. I've loved everything she's been in. I thought Fighting With My Family, she was really good in that. I loved her. I loved her in Little Women. I thought Little Women's a great movie, but she was really good in it too. Yeah. She's dating Zach Braff, so maybe we can get a Scrubs reference in Marvel going forward. The guy from Scrubs. He's a lot older than her, which is weird. Anyway.
Yeah. She just really loves Scrubs.
Yeah. But I thought she was.
Yeah.
I just thought she was really, really good. I thought the humor that she brought in the movie, even when she's talking about, how many pockets are on her vest and how impressed she is that she made it. And she has that very she has all the things that Natasha isn't. So it's in that idealism of the world, wanting to go out and do things and see things. She hasn't been tainted, even though she's gone through this assassination, she hasn't been tainted by the fact of reality, so to speak, with being let down by real people after her family. So to me, that excites me because it's like we're going to get to view what Natasha was in Iron Man 2 before she did all the things that led her to Iron Man 2. We're going to get to see that with Yelena. So that's why I thought she was really good in this movie. And I'd just like to see the theory come true that Ivan Vanko, is that his name, from Iron Man 2? I wanted to see him be her real father. That come out. And then he gets to say the line in a movie, "I want my daughter." And then they get to be reunited and it's just beautiful.
No, I think the conflict should be is he replaced her with his bird, and she's like, "You love your bird more than me." He's like, "I want my bird." and
then he looks at the bird and he goes to say, "I want my bird," but then he changes it last minute to daughter, and he looks at her and starts crying, and we just get this big emotion. "I want my bird, Yelena." And they just get this big embrace.
There's a fight scene between the bird and Yelena, and it's just
it's like the prison. It's a prison scene from Suicide Squad where he gets the ball and kills the bird.
Anyway,
sorry. That's got nothing to do with it. It was definitely Yelena. She was the MVP. Robin, over to you.
Okay. I really like the whole family, the whole widow family. I don't know how to refer to them because they're not really a family, but I was very invested in their story in this movie. It's definitely what kept me in. But I guess for my MVP, if I have to choose one, I have to choose Red Guardian for me. I think he's the one that kept me into this movie. I know Natasha and Yelena, they did hold their own throughout the scenes, but I was just looking forward to when we'd see Red Guardian again. So in all honesty, yeah, he's my MVP. I thought he was hilarious. I love his obsession with just being recognized as the Red Guardian. And I also like the conflict. I guess you don't realize how conflicted he is until later when he talks about it. But at the beginning of the movie, when he's being the dad, it seems like, oh, he cares about his family, whatnot. But really, he just wants to, it's not even his family. He just wants to be out back in the field as Red Guardian, back to the glory days type thing. So I liked that backstory, that origin, that conflict, and then moving forward, his humor was the best, and I really got a kick out of this movie because of him. Again, I think the fight scenes they had with him weren't as much as I'd like. I just sound like I just want to see fights, but I wish there was more in a sense. But yeah, he's my MVP. But yeah, I definitely think Yelena is definitely a huge one. The other one that I would have considered, but I felt like the need to, go a bit left field because nobody else did this one. Right.
Do you think he actually fought Captain America?
I'm for that theory that he fought like a version of Captain America.
Well, won't go too much into it, but in the comics, there's a lot of Captain Americas throughout the ages. So I wouldn't be surprised he fought like a 1950s Captain America.
Yeah. Like I would love if it was Bradley, but then it'd be pretty obvious. Like he'd know that isn't Steve Rogers, like because he's black. Like honestly.
Yeah,
but there's another race, bro. He doesn't see race. He's all good. He's fine.
Yeah. There's
another Captain America in the comics that he turns bad, but he fought in Vietnam, and then he kind of went nuts and became. I won't go into it, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's many ways you can go with it. Yeah.
Do you reckon it'd be better?
He definitely fought someone.
He fought Captain Carter. That's my theory.
That'd be great if it was a multiverse type thing as well.
Yeah.
That'd be insane. Okay, Master Assassin.
This is Loki. This is
you go first. I'll go first. I really wanted my Master Assassin to be. Actually, I wanted my MVP to be Taskmaster. In regards to Master Assassin, like before we went into watching the movie, I wanted it to be like someone like Ross or something. But unfortunately, it wasn't any of those. I went really, really left field for this one. In regards to, I guess, people that deserve a bit of credit. And I think the version of Nat and Yelena when they were kids are my Master Assassins. I actually thought they really good actresses, especially that scene, was it in Cuba, where they're about to be taken away? I was like, I felt those moments. Like they were really good. In regards to their delivery, little blue head Nat and little Yelena with the doll and whatnot. So they're my Master Assassins, and I think it just enhanced moving forward their dynamic further because they're not these little girls anymore that thought they were sisters. They're just awkward and don't know how to fit in the world after their experiences being intense assassins. So they're my ones.
My Master Assassins. Yeah, Taskmaster. No, Taskmaster's definitely one. All right, we'll get into it. I think I was lucky not to have known the Taskmaster from the comics or the cartoons, so I was able to come into it fresh. I was expecting, because I think I was told that the Taskmaster in the comics was of a Deadpoolish type character, like Deadpool without the comedy type. So I was, but I guess I enjoyed it. I don't know, like I'm a sucker for silent killers. They work for me in movies. I'm just not in real life. But I think look, I like the payoff to Dracov's daughter, and I think it helps. It helps reinforce Dracov to me. It was the idea, like Taskmaster is kind of the extent of his cruelty. It's kind of his development. So I do agree. It works to build him a lot because, like, the fact that he turns his daughter into this mindless creature, it shows that he's like, I don't show emotion. I use whatever resource I have, and it does work towards him, but at the same time, it does work towards her because, again, it shows she is the prime example of his cruelty, more than Natasha, more than Yelena. And if they take it in future movies, they can do a lot more with that and develop her as a character and how she comes from that trauma. I enjoyed the fight scenes. The fight scenes worked for me. I would have liked more fighting from Red Guardian between them. But yeah, I enjoyed those fight scenes. A lot of criticisms were towards that she didn't really imitate the Avengers or didn't really imitate fighting styles. I saw that she did. I don't know. But yeah, overall, like, I don't know, the character worked to me. Even the costume design, the costume design doesn't really work for me with the comics. It's just Ghost Rider with a hood. This one kind of works more better for me. But yeah, I'll say Taskmaster.
Ghost Rider with a hood. I can't believe you just said that. Anyways.
Without the flames.
How did you draw out that much narrative from a character that did nothing?
Hey, do you want me to talk about Dudley Do-Right? Snidely Whiplash? I can do this all day.
One thing you did touch on, though, is Dreykov. And I think his inferiority complex in this movie was really good. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, well, quickly touching on Dreykov, I love the part where like he yells at Natasha, and she's like, "I bet you haven't had anyone disagree with you for however long." And it's like it's kind of scary, the idea that someone's mind controlled all these people to the point where he can create like sort of like a prism around him where he doesn't have to deal with growth. He doesn't have to deal with being challenged. Like that's very interesting.
I guess if I can say one more thing about Taskmaster, I like that. I think in regards to her storyline, it relies a lot on the people around her to drive the narrative.
Well, sorry.
Yeah. And like, I would have preferred if Taskmaster was someone in the mix, just causing a bit more chaos than what she did, rather than just another small plot device.
Well, I'll just quickly say this. In Thor Love and Thunder, Christian Bale will be playing a character called Gore the God Butcher. I've read up on the character, I've read the comics, and he's got an amazing story in the comics. If they don't do that story, if they change the character and just make him a one-note villain, I will probably not like the movie. That's how. So I can see it from your perspective where you've seen a character and this character is awesome. I want that brought to the screen, and then you didn't get that. I think so. That's more where I will be in Thor Love and Thunder if it doesn't go out that way. So yeah.
Here's our advice. Don't read any of the comics. Don't look at Reddit. Don't do anything. Don't do research. Just watch the movie.
Just don't live. Just sleep in your bed, wake up, watch a Marvel movie, and go right back to sleep.
If I could make myself blind in between Marvel movies, I would. And then only get my sight back once I'm allowed to watch the movie.
I recommend Daredevil, but don't read it. Watch it. All right, Chance.
Can we also, before I get to my Master Assassins, can we somehow with the sound effects when David compares Taskmaster to Ghost Rider with a hood, can we get the reverse sound effect of a deep dive? So something coming out of the water.
What?
That's basically what that was. That was terrible.
It's like a toilet flush.
That's terrible. Okay, sorry, my Master Assassins. Look, I did want to give it to Madam Hydra a little bit, even though she's in the post-credit scene. And I won't do that because it was only a post-credit scene. I do really, really, really love where they're headed with that character because I think that, like we discussed before, I like the fact that we're getting Loki and we get Kang, which is kind of like this bigger cosmic villain. And then we get a smaller villain like Madam Hydra, who's kind of doing things on the ground. Like, to me, she's already overshadowed Ross. So they have a lot of work to do to bring Ross back into the front fold to make that work. Yeah. But I won't give it to her. I'm actually going to give mine to Red Guardian. I thought he was really good. To me, one of the best scenes in the whole movie was, and we saw a lot of it in the trailer, but was that prison breakout scene with him. Yeah. And then when they rescue him. And I thought some of the family dynamics we got in that plane bit, I do have some issues with it. I don't really understand how he couldn't break out and jump over the walls like he's a super soldier, kind of, like, basically. That didn't really make sense to me. But I do think, like you said with your MVP, Zeta, he carried the narrative. He carried a lot of it. He was really, really good in pushing the humor. And the fight scenes that he was involved in, I thought were really funny and really hilarious. And seeing him interact with his quote-unquote fake wife when they get back was really interesting to me. Like, I just thought that was really, really funny, seeing him do that. Yeah. And so he's my Master Assassin.
It still fits. All right, last segment, the end game. Righteous quote and rating.
I can feel the
David,
righteousness surging. Now dig on this.
Okay, so I think for me, let me think. Sorry, I was not prepared for the righteous quote. But I'll start with the rating, as I think. Yeah, thought this film was amazing. Like I said, you know what? I'm actually going to stretch it, and I'm probably going to go for that 9. So, yep, 9 Toby's out of Maguire. It's okay.
You're lucky none of the other boys are here.
Grant would punch the screen. He actually would punch the screen.
Grant would have left this conversation during our positives, probably.
Yeah. Oh.
9. Okay, yep, 9.
Yep. Actually, go to Caleb. I got to prepare for my righteous quote. I want to make sure I get this. So,
right.
go. Yeah.
A big chance.
All right. Well, 9's huge. I'm definitely not giving it a 9. My righteous quote that I'm going to give is easily, and look, I'm sorry if any of you guys were going to give this one, but easily the best line in the movie to me was obviously with my favorite character, Elena. And when they're at the dinner table and she says the line, "The best part of my life was fake and no one told me."
The best part of my life was
and I
fake.
think like it's so well delivered. It's so well said by Florence Pugh, but it means so much more because we're getting these agents, which all of them, that was the best part of their lives, if we're honest with ourselves, but it was fake. And for many of them, you know, they're all living these double lives where really, you know, they have these really nice moments. Like even Natasha's having nice moments with Hawkeye down the track, and she's having nice moments with the Avengers, and some of it's not real. Like some of it is fake. Some of the things that are going on isn't 100% her. Yeah. So because of the way they've been created, they've never been able to be completely themselves. And it's not till they're around that dinner table that all of them, once again, for the first time, we actually see Natasha be herself, Yelena be herself, you know, Red Guardian be herself, and then Melina, is that I'm saying? Melina be herself. They're all themselves again, which is so interesting. That's why the line hits so much harder. So I just thought that was a great line. For a rating, look, I do think, I did enjoy the movie. I enjoyed it both times I watched it. I definitely not going to give it as high as David, but I'm going to use a typical Fitzy quote. I'm going to give it a solid 8. 8 out of 10. Solid 8 is what I give this movie.
Nice. That's a great quote. Yeah. All right, David, do you have your quote?
I do.
Here we go. If it's from Taskmaster, I will.
Yeah. No, it's not. So it's the line.
Well, I doubt
the God from space is to take ibuprofen after a fight. Again, I like it. And to be honest, in hindsight, I wish they went more into the humanity of it, which is the idea of, like, to be honest, movies like Black Widow, their strong suit is that they're normal people. And that's what they should go into even with Hawkeye, that they're not gods. They're not, you know, they're not technically superheroes, that they feel pain, that they get knocked around. And it's an interesting aspect to explore. Like, you can explore the fact of, like, people say, oh, yeah, Black Widow doesn't have superpower, she's the old one out. It's like, well, go into that, explore that, show how that makes her even more powerful, that she has to come from her own humanity. So, yeah, I'm giving that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
My quote is building on David's one. I actually considered the ibuprofen one because that was one that definitely stood out for me in the movie as well. But my other one's from Florence as well. And it's when she's talking to Nat after they have that fight. Is like, where's an Avenger when you need one? And Nat's like literally right there in the room. And I think that's one aspect of the movie that I feel like, similar to David, the humanity aspect that they could have delivered more on in regards to showing that Black Widow is just as much an Avenger as the other Avengers. But I guess it was focused on her narrative in a sense and her development leading into Infinity War, which, you know, in a sense it did, but like it just showed that she plays quite a big role as one of the Avengers, but you got to realize the reality of her situation. She's a human being, and she ends up being one of the ones that gives her life in the end, which is huge because she's not one of the most powerful Avengers, but she is an Avenger, and it was cool to see.
Strongest Avenger.
Strongest. Yeah. Well, the strongest Avenger showed a lot of emotion when she died. Anyways, yeah, I like that quote in regards to just realizing the humanity and the realism behind her position as an Avenger, and that she deserves to be, you know, just put respect on her name as an Avenger, essentially. My rating. So this is a mid-tier movie for me. So I'll give it a 7. A solid 7. There's just a lot that drags it down. But like a 7 is above Thor and Iron Man 3. So it's pretty big. All right. That concludes our first Phase 4 discussion, our Black Widow casual discussions. Hope you enjoyed. I don't know what we're going to do next, but we'll see where we go with the
Dudley Do-Right.
Dudley Do-Right, yeah. Maybe we'll just go into a whole Brendan Fraser marathon of movies. Dudley Do-Right, George of the Jungle.
Can we do a live stream at some? If lockdown keeps going into like a long time, can we do a live stream where we have to all watch like Brendan Fraser movie marathon? That we just have to just like react to just like talking about how terrible some of them are.
Yes, 100%.
Oh my gosh.
All right, thank you for joining me, boys. It's good to see you, and thank you for watching.
Ray.
Shout out to Doug Ray Scott.
Doug Ray!